Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
Star people, Zuni cosmology, contact with ETs, medicine societies, inner earth realms, and sacred stargates, as we will discuss this with our first guest, Zuni elder Clifford Mahooty. And in our second hour, we have author Gary A. David sharing the Orion Zone, ancient cities of the American Southwest.
That's what we're going to be talking about today on Air with Tony Sweet's Truth Be Told show. What we hope you take away today is an expanded perspective about what you thought you knew. Sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction, but we believe that if you open your mind and your heart just a little bit more every day, you'll be able to see and hear new facts about your so-called reality.
I'm Tony Sweet.
I'm Eddie Connor.
I'm Walt Lusk.
And you're listening to
Truth Be Told,
exclusively on
UBNradio.com. Sponsored by Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton, February 2015. And you get your tickets at the www.consciouslifeexpo.com. And also sponsored by Adventures Unlimited Press,
where you can find out lots of more books and information with them at adventuresunlimitedpress.com.
All right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have our first guest, Clifford Mahooty. You're going to be amazed by this gentleman. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to play you a song that is from the Southwest called Zuni Sunrise. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back
with Truth Be Told.
You bet. Right here on Universal Broadcasting.
And welcome back to On Air with Tony Sweet. We're going to introduce our very first guest. Zuni elder and civil engineer Clifford Mahooty is here today speaking about contact with ETs, medicine societies, inner earth realms, and sacred stargates, as well as Zuni cosmology. He walks in two worlds as a credentialed academic and as a revered Zuni elder. He was born on the Zuni reservation in ancestral tribal lands at a time where there was no running water or electricity. He shares his firsthand knowledge of his grandmother's and grandfather's narratives, given to him on a fascinating array of mystical topics and alternative cosmology of the earth as well as humankind. Grandfather Mahooty is a man of impeccable credibility, and we're honored that he's our guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, please welcome our guest, Zuni Elder Clifford Mahooty.
Clifford! How are you, my friend? How are you?
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us?
Anybody
I
home?
hope he can hear us.
Are you in the TP?
Well, we have him on the phone, so...
Are you in the TP?
In the TP. All right, so what we're going to do, we may have to give him a call back, see if maybe we can get him on the phone. So, Eddie, again, tell us who Clifford is a little bit, because some people may not know exactly what he does and his background.
Well, first of all, he's a civil engineer, and it's exactly what his bio spoke about. He walks between worlds.
Well, the thing about engineers is they're very exact, right? I mean, they're very thorough.
And left brain.
And very left brain.
And logistical.
Yes.
And he worked for the government for years.
For ages.
And then he's also walking between worlds in that. Maybe
Call has been forwarded to an automatic voice.
Oh, wow.
There we go. And he's also an elder in the Zuni Nation.
And he is, we should ask him about that snake dream that I had 2 nights in a row.
You had a snake dream, because that's...
That's major. And Ted Andrews of Animal Speaks, he talks about every animal that enters your life enters for a reason. Oh, and long story short, it's snakes are a symbol for walking between worlds as well, because they can swim in the water as well as live on the earth.
Okay.
And just like Clifford, he's between both. So
yes. Are you saying he's a snake?
No, I'm saying he has the ability, like snakes,
Clifford, you on the phone?
Worlds.
Okay. Yeah, so he's Zuni Nation, so that's not left-brained at all.
Hello.
Clifford, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, now we got you on the phone. There we go. Well, everybody, this is Clifford Mahooty, a Zuni elder, and just an all-around good guy. I've had a conversation with him earlier this week, and we had such a great time. And but first, I want to introduce my co-host here, Eddie Connor. Is here with us.
Hi, Clifford.
Hello.
And, of course, Walter Lusk.
Hey, Clifford. Pleasure to meet you.
Walter who?
Walter Lusk.
You can just call me Walt.
Yeah, just call me.
As in Disney.
All right, Walter.
Well, everybody, like I said, this is going to be a great interview because the wonderful Clifford has so much knowledge beyond what most of us normal folk would ever even dream of having, because he's walked the walk and he's talked the talk. And first, Clifford, I want to get into your background a little bit, because you grew up, on the Zuni Nation reservation. And first of all, what was it like growing up with the Zuni tribes?
Well, I was born in 1944, so I was born right smack in the middle of World War II. And after that, when I grew up, by the time I was about 5 or 6 years old, I had to go to a government day school right there on the reservation run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And at that time, we were taught parallel systems. First of all is our own tribal system, religions, culture, spirituality, and at the same time we were also running a track of the white man system, reading, writing, arithmetic, that type of thing.
Well, yeah, and I've watched many documentaries on this subject, and it's sad because just like anybody that is on different levels, because you guys are a very higher level of spirituality, I feel anyway. And when you are taught something completely different by organization,
the white man,
that really should never have been forced upon you guys. What was it like growing up and then going in, because I know you went into the government, working for the government. What was it like growing up and then moving into the government of Washington, D.C.? What was that like?
Well, like my experience with the government started quite young at the government around day schools, and it's very unfortunate that a lot of our Indian children were actually forced to what they call boarding schools throughout the nation. They actually took away the children away from their environment, from their parents, with such a young age, and put them in boarding schools. So they were their term was acculturation, and so I was not that type of individual that had to go to the boarding schools. I was at the edge of it, and the reason is that our nation, the Zuni tribe, has always been a forerunner in a lot of different systems. By that I mean the education system at that time was run by the government, and then we switched over in the 1950s, mid-50s, into a state school system. However, the state school system was also more like the federal government, in that they were teaching us things that were not relevant to our way of life, our environment, our culture, our spirituality.
Not surprising.
So when I finally worked my way into, I was probably one of the first wave of Indian kids that throughout the nation, they went into a technical type approach. I went to engineering school. And then after that, I started working with many different government programs. Now, I'm very familiar with how the government treated people at the reservation level, not only with my tribe, but with other tribes, because I read a lot. And I also heard a lot of stories from my elders and my teachers of what the white man had done to the land, to the people throughout the centuries. So I learned that at a very young age, and rather than doing like what a lot of other Indian people did from my generation, I had to learn what they did that was so bad, and a lot of that stuff was that was taught in the American scene was just a scratch on the surface of what the real history was. So I had to really go into a lot of detailed information systems from other Indian tribes of what they actually done to them. And it's sort of like what they do in the recent activity of the UFO world, is that the government hides a lot of information so they cannot be either embarrassed with it or there's actually a plan. So when I finally reached the government scene when I was in my 20s and 30s, I had this attitude of, in order to learn what the beast is, I have to go into the belly of the beast.
Yes. So
I ended up in Washington, D.C. on many, many different types of projects. And I worked my way through the system, too. I used to work for Shell Oil Company. And I used to do a lot of Indian housing programs under HUD on the Southwest Indian Tribes. I was the director of that. And I saw the bureaucracy, how they operated, and also the way the Indians were mistreated, how they were lied to, and how they were actually just given the wrong information. And they were, in a lot of cases, they were used as experiments.
Yes.
And so a lot of the money that supposedly went into their programs were not going directly to the Indians, because a lot of things that occurred on Indian reservations were diverted by outside interest groups. For example, if they build a school on the Indian reservation, the school would be bloated with a lot of more money, and the people that made actually the money were the contractors, non-Indian contractors. Sort of like what they're doing with present-day casinos.
Yes.
Don't make any money on casinos. They only use the land, and people at the casinos are not even hired, except maybe to be janitors and parking attendants.
That's terrible.
But anyway, going back to what I found out about Washington, and I was at a pretty high level in terms of management, and I saw firsthand of what the whole philosophy of the American government is toward the Indians. It doesn't make any difference whether it's 1990 or 1890, they still have the same attitude. Get rid of the Indians and give them poor stuff, make sure that they don't get the right stuff, and then they were used primarily as a way to spend money on their buddies. And so it's just a mess. I dealt with it for over 35 years. Its various stages, and also in various different programs.
Well,
and also I went on to become a commissioned officer with what they call the U.S. Public Health Service, which is a uniformed services that work with Indian tribes for their medical and environmental issues, and that also is another way of diverting funds, which doesn't really go to correct the health problems of the American Indian people. But it's really a mess. It's always been a mess, and I don't see any change, especially with the present situation and what the government is going through right now.
Well, that's a question that I think a lot of people have is, they keep seeing more and more corruption, but this is not something new with the American government, and there's a lot of governments around the world that are like this. But what you've seen and what you've heard and people that you've come in contact with when it comes to government corruption, who do you think is behind this? Because it's bigger than just a Republican Party or a Democratic Party. What do you think is going on with behind the scenes?
Well, there's the conspiracy theorists talk about, they're ruled by a certain order, whether it be the Illuminati, whether it be the Council of 12.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been like this on this planet. I mean, there has always been corruption. It doesn't make any difference whether it's 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago or
Right.
a million years ago. This has always been on this in the universe of the dark and the light, and the dark forces has become weighed out within the last, in the past so many centuries. And the rest of the people that want to make something for betterment of mankind has never been given the chance. If you look at what the history of this planet, there's always been war.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been actions taken by other groups to destroy the land, the resources, and
Absolutely.
of course the people.
Yep.
So you'll continue to do that. Now there's the American Indian people have a prophecy that says that will all change, but in order for it to change, we have to go through a whole shaking up of the planet, and it has happened in the past. The scientists have already known or figured out that this planet has flipped over on its axis at least 14 times.
And we're due for another one. We're overdue.
Yeah, well, the American Indian, I don't care what tribe it is, and also the indigenous groups throughout the planet, they also know about these things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's and because the bad people know about these, they've always manipulated the whole people on this planet for their own personal gain. But I think right now that they're losing. The dark forces are losing. It took centuries for them to become powerful, but they're losing. And so that's why we're going through this turmoil. It's crazy. It's extremely crazy what they're doing right now, especially with technology.
I believe I agree with you. I think they're losing, and they've escalated a lot of timetables to try and catch up what they've lost, and I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to pan out.
Well, you know what a lot of people, if you want to really get down to the brass tacks about everything, what they ought to understand is that because this nation has been dumbed down for at least
Yes, it has.
75 years that I know of. It started back with Sputnik. And for at least 60 years, we have been, since about 1962 on, we've been coming down, we've been dumbed down. And it's also a plan because as long as people are ignorant and stupid, they're going to continue to do the same thing. Now, this is where a lot of your political organizations have come into play. And so this is why, if you look at the education system today, people don't know how to read and write. The technology that have been provided by our space brothers have been put to a bad use. Look at all the technology that on computer systems. Look at all the games that they've incorporated into our homes, where all the kids, that's all they know how to do. They don't even know. They don't even go outside to play anymore. They don't even know how to survive.
Correct.
It is true.
Correct.
So even today, war games are. If you look at the bombing of those countries right now, the kids don't. There are no soldiers needed to go halfway across the world to bomb somebody else. They can do it out in a lab in Florida and use your equipment up there in the sky to bomb anybody.
With drones.
You look at the latest thing how they deliver equipment to your house now using the drones. So that it's become a different world, and we're on a logarithmic rate. A growth rate.
Yeah, we are.
Where technology and also the wickedness go hand in hand. The wickedness is promoted by the dark force people, which in this case are primarily your conspiracy groups called the Illuminati or the Freemasons, and they're all in cahoots with each other, including our military.
Oh, I agree with
and
that.
yes, the Illuminati does exist.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
We've known that. The American Indians knew that before the white man ever came to this part of the world.
Wow.
And their prophecies are based upon that. They knew that when they were going to come, they knew what they were going to do. And they had to accept them anyway because they were not that way. Even today, if you look at the American Indian today, the survivors of our Indian tribes, they're taking it, and they have to just bear it of what they're doing to them. And they've become so, they have been bought out too in a way, because look at all the government systems, the government programs that keep them quiet. If they could just refuse that and be on their own, they'd be a hell of a lot better off. But the new generation doesn't want to do that.
Do you think? Do you think though? Because I always find it fascinating. We had talked about this, that the white man really did try to destroy American Indians.
Absolutely,
many times, and you guys are still here, in great numbers. But why do you think you guys survived so to this point, and what do you think the next step is for not just the Zunis but other tribes can do to bring spirituality back to the planet?
Well, I think the reason that they have survived is because they have been provided those skills throughout the ages of survival. If you look at the history, not the white man's history, but the real history, deviate from the anthropologists, archaeologists, And if you look at the civilizations that existed here, not only hundreds but thousands and thousands of years ago, they were always in connect with something or somebody. And that's where the spiritual connection comes into play. They have always been, I think, there's a lot of programs now that are coming on the air, especially people like the ancient alien theorists. You know, they've come back and they're looking at things that have been here for centuries. Nobody knows. I don't care how smart you think you are. Nobody knows what the pyramids in Egypt are all about. Nobody knows that the pyramids in Mesoamerica are about.
Absolutely correct.
Nobody knows about the vortices in Sedona, Arizona, what they're about. They're all merely speculating, and they are on an ego trip, and that's where the confusion comes in. If they went back and really sat down with the American Indian people, some of us that are left over from the ancient teachings, they can learn a hell of a lot, but that's not in their that's not their forte.
It's not their agenda either.
They don't want to know the truth. Because if they knew the truth, there's no money in the truth. There's no power in the truth. There's no ego in the truth. But going back to what the American Indians have survived throughout the ages, they just did it by sheer, I guess, strength that they had because of their teachings, and basically because they're tied to Mother Earth, and that was their charge. All the Indian tribes, I don't care whether it's from the East Coast to the West Coast and all tribes in between, if you go and sit down and really study their philosophy, they were put here to take care of Mother Earth and all the living things. A stone out there that's laying up in front of my house over here, that's also a living thing. That tree out here in front of my house, that's also a living thing. But people don't look at it this way, and the American Indian only took what they needed. That's another thing too, that they're desecrating of the Mother Earth. If you look at the mining, this planet is drying up because of the pumping of water and just wasting it. So you can write volumes and volumes of waste and abuse, and that's what happened in previous civilizations. I don't care if you're a theorist that believe in Atlantis, Lemuria, and other civilizations. That's exactly what they did. They went way beyond what whoever the creator or creators or the gods had told us, that you only do this according to our ways, and they violated them. Even in the white man's Bible, it talks about that. And so right now, they have to just put up with it. The American Indian merely puts up with a lot of things. And again, because of the younger generation, they don't want to follow the road of the way of our forefathers, because it's a hard road. Even if we did, where in the heck are we going to get the water to grow our crops?
Right.
Where in the heck are we going to get the land to go over there and develop agriculture? We can't go up to the mountains anymore to hunt deer or other animals for our protein needs. We have to go ask permission from the Park Service, the National Park Rangers, the Forest Service, just to go get a piece of wood that we use for our rituals. I mean, what kind of BS is that when the American Indian has to go ask for permission to perform their ceremonies, which were given by the gods? I mean, this is...
And you guys were here first.
Yeah, and it's total bullshit. I mean, it's ridiculous. Do you find that the American the American people, not the government.
Average American person.
The average American person. Do you find that there was an empathy and a compassion for the American Indians that was greater than the government, where some of the American people wanted to come in and really get behind the American Indian and want to lift them up or try to at least make some of it right, but the government wouldn't allow it, Clifford?
Well, I don't think it's that. I think the reason that a lot of your average American that it's again, you got to understand one thing about the white race. They're we call them the wannabes. The wannabe tribe, and there's another tribe over here close to in Arizona. They live in Sedona. They call them the woo-woo tribe. They want to do like what they thought the American Indians did in the past. They want to live the life of a past because they're lost.
Yes. Right.
They have no grounding of any kind. And they're the do-gooders. The do-gooders of this nation only do it again so they'll have their picture on Facebook. Look what I did for the Indians. I'm part of Indian. I know how to do rituals. They put on a whole bunch of feathers and a whole bunch of turquoise, and they put their crystals around their neck and say, "No, I'm a shaman." But I think this is an ulterior motive to try to help the Indians, and what they're doing is they're looking for what makes the Indians tick. And so that in itself is a general rule. That's what these people are all about. And that's why I go over throughout this whole nation. I talk about these things.
Thank you.
They try to walk into our way of life merely for it's a thing to do. They go to these, now they have what they call a powwow circuit all over the nation. I mean, the biggest one is in Albuquerque. It's called Gathering of Nations. They have one big one in Los Angeles, the big Coliseum over there. And they have these powwows. It's going on right now.
Okay.
That really has nothing to do with spirituality. It has nothing to do with religion. It's all it is it's a carnival. It's a show. I mean, it's great. Yeah, I understand. I've been to a lot of those powwows when I was a kid. But so so it's a thing to do. The general public, a lot of people, they like to donate money, thinking that the money will be used for the benefit of the culture, the arts of the Indian community or Indian people. What they don't realize is that all Indian reservations are like a third world nation. Wow. Only the ruling class, it's actually anarchy in a lot of ways. Only those people that are in charge benefit because of the benefit from the rest of the community at large because they're in charge. It's just like us, the United States government, sending billions of dollars to a nation over there in Africa. They say that it's for the benefit of Indian kids, the African kids, for their health, their water system, their food, whatever. That's not true because that money is taken by those that are in power. They buy their jets with it. They live in palaces, and those kids are still poor and starving.
Wow.
And that's another. I mean, this is for the American community public. If they want to do that, they should actually go out there and give the money or whatever it is
directly
to those people that are actually out there.
And if you're just tuning in to On Air with Tony Sweet, today's show is called Truth Be Told. And we're with Zuni Elder Clifford Mahooty. And you're giving us information that we've never heard before on the show. So we appreciate that because we know you're uplifting listeners and giving them a true perspective that a lot of people don't have. I want to ask you about the Zuni tribe and the connection that the tribe has with Star people, Clifford. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think all of the Indian tribes that I have consulting with contacted. They have had star people connections throughout, all their bases of spirituality, their culture, their government systems, their whole life cycles, whether it be in agriculture, whether it be hunting, worship, whatever. They're all connected in what we call our deities. And a lot of them are, because they come from all different directions, and sky people are the common ones because they're the ones that were here when after this planet was created, and they were the first ones here. And you can go to any Indian tribe and look, check out their sacred knowledge, information, esoteric knowledge, and you'll find that there's always a space brother connection. They call it space brother for lack of a. It's a generic term that is used by many, many different people on this planet. But we have had connection. For example, in Zuni, our rituals, our year-round activities are based upon the coming of the gods especially from the sky. So it's all ritualistic. It's all within our whole culture. Our ceremony is based upon that. Our religious activities, our ceremonies are based upon that. The only thing that is kind of hard to elaborate on is that the teachings are not there among our people. The teachings that are about why and who and where are not taught. And it's just like anything else right now. You take a computer, everybody knows how to use a laptop or a computer. They don't understand the methodology of where you turn on the screen and you start tapping these little keys in there, what comes on. They have no idea about the binary system. They have no idea about the circuitry that goes into there. They just know that it works. Yes. So in essence, that's what we are now at the stage of our lives. So we can see these things when we perform the ceremonies in our plazas, in our ritual activities. They know it's there, but if you ask them, the younger generation today, what is the purpose? What is the meaning behind this? And they have absolutely no idea because the teachings are not there. They're just doing it. They just go through the motions. But this is where we are failing as tribal wisdom keepers, medicine order people.
Tribal leaders.
We're failing because we're not passing the why, the purpose information on to the younger generations.
Well,
and our history is not written; it's all oral. So that's kind of hard.
That is hard because
there's very hard.
Storytelling was an art for centuries and centuries, and that's how we continue to learn. When I love to go to South America, I go to Peru, and I have a great friend out there named Abelardo who still speaks the Quechua language that his grandparents and their grandparents keep passing on to him. And he's one of the few, he's like in the top 1% of people who still carry on the storytelling part of it and pass the knowledge on to other people who were wanting to hear it. So why are the star people contacting us, Clifford?
Well, the reason is that we have deviated from the procedures and the protocols that were given us as human beings. We are not following the protocols as given centuries and thousands and thousands of years ago. If you do this, the world will be in balance. You will, if you follow these procedures and you do the prayer system, you do the rituals on a monthly or daily schedule, we will be there to receive your words, and we will also provide you with all the things universal: good health, food, wealth, water, rain, good crops, good children, all the things that you can think of. You can make a list of it. What has happened is that there's a lot of interferences that has occurred in the last 50 years. Well, maybe about, well, a little more than that, maybe 75 years. And it happened with Second World War as a starting point. And I can pretty well attest to that because, like I said, I was born in 1944.
Mm-hmm.
The 50s were very good times for most people on the planet.
Yes.
But the reason that they're interfering now, because they're the rulers of the universe. Then not only do they take care of this planet, but they also take care of other constellations and God knows how many other places. And they're in the very higher and different dimensions. We know about those because it's interwoven in our culture, in our rituals, our deity system. It's all interwoven in there. There's only one thing that's not clear is because Zuni, if you are a Zuni and you spent your whole life in Zuni and if you've never gone out of the Zuni reservation and you never learned and there's no way to compare or make any parallelisms, you'll always say, well, and then their attitude is that why do you want to know? That's just the way it is, and that's it. I questioned a lot of things when I was a kid and as I was growing up. Even to this day, I do. But the reason that they're becoming more active is what this world has done within the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So what you're implying there, Clifford, is the star people are still communicating with you guys?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's more active than ever, and they're doing it by several different ways. And some people call them the Greys.
Mm-hmm.
Some people call them flying saucers.
Okay.
Some people call them Sasquatch. Some people call them orbs.
Wow.
I mean, it's always been like that. It's nothing new. The American Indian has known this for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's what their whole systems are based upon. I don't care if you go up to the Lakota Nation. I've talked to a lot of people up in Alaska, the Alaska Natives.
Well, to validate that, our next guest is talking about the similar thing that it probably is the Greys. They're talking to the Hopi Indians. So there is no doubt about it, the folks talking here, that's not still occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Who's this guy?
Gary David, you know him.
Oh, yeah, Gary. He's got a lot of information because he's done a lot of detailed work with the Hopis.
Yes.
Especially the Orion.
Yes.
And we also have the different constellations. We have a very, very highly structured, complex system in Zuni of medicinal priesthood societies, Kachina systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They come from different parts of the universe. Now, they're not from one place. I get a kick out of these people saying, well, I talk to the Pleiadians and I talk to the Orions or Zeta Reticuli. People came and talked to me. I don't see those. We just know about that, and it's not for us to talk about those things.
Yes.
We do know that because they're here with us every day. We just can't see them. They're in a different frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you.
Different dimension.
Yeah, whenever I was a kid, I was a really, really psychic kid, and I was a weird kid on top of that. But
Explains everything.
Yeah, we grew up really, really poor, and I had a really great imagination. But I was also seeing angels, and I would see people who had passed away on the other side. But whenever we moved to a new place out in the country, where for a while I was without water too, running water and electricity for a minute. I was like, what? And there would be on another frequency, which is what the angels and the spirit guides are, there would be these little grays that would come, and they would just poke their head inside of my room. They never walked into the room. They would just stand there and just like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? And I saw them on and off my entire childhood. Is that sort of similar to what you're talking about with frequencies and how they'll interact if you're open in that way?
Well, we have actual formal ceremonies, and there's a lot of preparation that we have to go through in order to, because all our prayer systems, all our ritual systems is that first of all, you got to be very humble.
That's right.
That's the anti-white man.
That's why I love Clifford.
It's the
It's
truth.
truth.
And so this is just from my little perspective with what you're speaking about. When you're saying ritual, when you're saying prayer, you're not talking about walking through the physical motions to get an end result from the beings over there. You are talking about being in the present moment, dropping the ego, feeling it, vibrating it, radiating it from the inside out with an absolute knowing and believability that it's there and that we're all interacting together as one, right?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. First of all, is that there's no ego involved, and the other thing too that's quite ritualistic is that you have to go through a preparation. You have to go through a cleansing. You have to go through a fasting. You avoid certain foods. You have to abstain from sexual activity, even the thoughts of it.
Oh.
And so you become yourself pure, and then you have to, there's many rituals. Rituals, yeah. So you have to prepare for that. Not only within that own systematic rituals, but when you go outside, if you go visit, if you go to a strange land, or even though you're aware of it, you also have to go there. You have to ask for permission.
Yeah.
Every time that you go going back to my woo-woo tribe of Sedona. These people. There are a lot of places on this planet that the ancient ones abandoned it for many reasons. Some of them they created Pandora's boxes, if you want to call it that, for lack of a better word. And then there are certain things that happen, and you hear a lot about these things. Remember that Nightmare on Elm Street, I believe, that made a movie.
Yeah.
That they put the whole housing system on ancient burial grounds, and they told them about that. And that's for real.
That's sad.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And you go to a lot of places where it's the land is beautiful. I mean, it's real majestic and all that. But there are certain things that the ancient ones abandoned because of certain things that occurred, whether it be interdimensional beings that came over there, or they trapped them, or they put them away. And this borders on black magic. The black magic folks have always been here with us, the duality of the universe. And so that there's a lot of places that people now, especially your mainstream archaeologists and anthropologists, have gone in there and opened up those places where things were kept away. If you remember the first time that they opened up King Tut's tomb,
yes.
and things that happened to a lot of people, even though they're miles away. Well, there's a lot of stories of the Hopi, for example, about taking their certain things that they use for ceremonial purposes, like their kachinas, paraphernalia for their religious things. People actually died, or they didn't leave them alone. The spirits would drive them crazy, so some of them would return it back. But then again, after that, you're already exposed to it. It's just like you're trying to avoid bad luck or whatever. But once you do that, there's a lot of things that happen in Zuni also that I'm very familiar with about those type of people coming in and taking away altars and ceremonial objects that we use for the gods. They actually, the artists took them away, stole them, and even some of our own Zuni people sold them, but they died tragic deaths, or they got poor. So there's, I can go on forever with these type of stories. But they're interdimensional, multidimensional beings. They're always with us. They never leave us. It's just that they're in an invisible plane, or in a different dimension.
Now, do you have the Zuni tribes? Is there, like, I'm sure you have your sacred grounds, but do star people, sky people, are there certain locations that are more active that you see that people can, not necessarily like we can go, but people of your tribe can go and connect, spiritually with the sky people?
Well, there's many places, not only in Zuni proper, but places in Arizona, clear up around where present-day Los Alamos nuclear labs is.
Interesting.
There's a what do you call it, a vortex over there, and those people that created the atomic bomb knew about this before they moved there.
What?
So
you're implying that when they were creating the atomic bomb, they picked Los Alamos on purpose?
Yeah,
doesn't surprise me.
the Indians knew about it over there,
course.
and the white man found out about it. That's where they created the atomic bomb.
Oh.
And the hydrogen bomb. Teller, those other people. Oppenheimer. Yeah, if you read Oppenheimer's book, it doesn't talk about that. I've got all this stuff in my library, but if you go and talk to the Indians, it's an entirely different story.
Of course.
He always is. Well, Oppenheimer also talks about the ancient sand strips from India.
Yeah. So they and also, if you really want to go into research on a lot of these things, we all are connected with the indigenous tribes throughout the planet.
Yes.
And we don't buy into the Darwinian theory of evolution. That's a joke.
I mean, I was watching a show just this week about the fact that just our human ability to speak is, from an evolution perspective, there's no way that it would be evolved over the length of time we've been on the planet.
Well, if that's the case, they ought to look at the Zuni language.
Okay.
Zuni is not connected to any other language on this planet.
I read that. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah. They try to, somebody wanted to do it with the Libyans. And one of the writers, which I got into a hassle with, her name is Nancy L. Davis. She wanted to connect it with the Oriental language. The Orientals group actually lived among the Zunis, but they did not interact with the Zunis way back right before Coronado, about 1400, I'd say about anywhere from 13 to about 1500, about 200 or 300 years they were in Zuni, and that's what her book is based on. It's called the Zuni Enigma.
Wow.
And so she tried to do that too. So there's a lot of writers, a lot of people that try to do all they had to do is to go talk to the Zuni people, but they do it because they want to sell books.
That's it.
That's their agenda.
And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to On Air with Tony Sweet. We're speaking with Zuni Elder Clifford Mahooty. You're also on the UBNradio.com network, and today's show is the Truth Be Told show, and we're so honored to have you here. We have about 4 minutes left, Clifford, but we want to ask you really quickly, can we prevent the prophecies from coming true, the negative prophecies, or is it too late?
Well, if you look at the prophecies of other tribes, we tried to tell them, especially the Hopis, way
Mhm.
back in the 40s. There's many people, indigenous people, that try to tell the people that are in power, especially in this country, that if you do this, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you know the philosophy of those people, what the heck do those savages know? They're just heathens. They have no. They're uneducated. What do they know about anything? Well, that's why now they have a different attitude. They're not the ruling class, but the other people in general. They're looking now and say, "Oh, well, they had really something to say, and we never listened to them." So this the trend now is that they're turning to the American Indians. However, because of introduction of the poor educational system of this country and the dying off of the Indian elders that
Yes.
did not pass on this information, their knowledge is lost forever.
So the question is, what wisdom can you give us to better our planet, our country, and even ourselves?
Well, again, the bottom line is education.
Yes, yes.
And I'm sure education and awareness.
Education, but we're going to go through, regardless of what group we are, what color, race, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to go through in an awakening stage. And this time, right before, if you look at the Bible and other prophecies, we're going to have to go through, in order to, it's just like being an alcoholic.
Yes.
In order to get on your feet, you have to
Hit
totally
bottom.
crash and
Yeah,
burn.
you got to hit bottom.
Otherwise, you're not going. You can't go halfway. You can't go 99% of the way. It has to totally collapse before you can even come back to a renewal, and that's what happens. If you look at what they do with the Forest Service, they go and save forests, not for the trees, but for the multi-million-dollar homes. In the old days, the earth renewed itself by putting in a thunderstorm and wiping out a whole forest.
Yes.
So a new tree growth will happen, new species will come in, and that's a basic thing that's going to happen. Right now, we're in that beginning stage of it, but the earth has gone through many changes in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going to happen. Whoever is going to be saved will be saved.
Right.
Wow. And awareness and education really is the key. And getting in alignment with your heart chakra, your heart center, and really becoming one with everything around you, because it is a living, breathing extension of who we are as human beings.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Right. But the thing about it is that we have too many charlatans that are still running around.
Yes.
That's right.
And those are the ones that are wanting, $1,000 an hour. Look at the internet. How many shamans do we have? How many people that connect with all the spirit guys? And they said, I talked to this guy up in planet Saturn. Oh, all you have to do is look inside of yourself.
That's right.
Go inside yourself and start doing it with yourself, and then you generate that energy throughout the whole world. And also to start learning how to love each other and respect. And we don't have that.
No, we don't.
And I think that's a great place to say we need to have you back, because
Very.
we have you're
way
just
sooner than later. We're just getting started.
Yeah, and I can't believe this time has flown so fast, and it's been such an honor. And you are the not only a Zuni elder. I think you're an elder for all of humanity, and I think we need people like you. And it's a shame to know that even your own children are not following the traditions that we are cherishing right here and right now. But we'd love to have you back, and I hope you accept that offer of an invitation. But thank you. We want to give you this applause. All the audience goes crazy for Clifford Mahooty. And we want to have you back soon. And anything you need from us, we're right there with you. So let us know.
Thank you, Clifford.
Okay.
Thank you, Clifford.
God bless.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was just this is why I'm glad we're doing this show.
Well, he said something very interesting. He says, there's no money, there's no power, and there's no ego in the truth.
That's right.
Oh.
Okay.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, that was a great line. And we are the Truth Be Told show.
Exactly.
So there it is.
How did that name just finally fell into my lap, and it just started that way?
Well, when you're doing something you love to do, the path always exposes itself.
Well, I think it's time that we take a break. But again, if you guys have just tuned in halfway through the interview, make sure to tune in every.
Yeah,
or I guess
don't touch that dial.
Well, don't touch the dial. We still
go
have
back and listen.
a great author coming on. It's called Gary A. David.
Yeah, Gary David.
We're going to be talking about the Hopi Nation now.
And what's interesting, a lot of things that Clifford talked about, Gary does as well.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, the overlap is amazing.
I've always wanted to learn more about the American Indian, and I'm glad Clifford says he likes to be called American Indian, not Native American, because that's it just makes more sense to me. And I'm so honored to have him on the show. All right, well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have author of the book The Orion Zone. We have Gary A. David. So don't go anywhere. This is Truth Be Told on Universal Broadcasting. Be right back.